Hello and welcome to Inside Sports. It's good to have you along this week, and I'm Wes Decker, might be known as the Snowman from this point forward. I had just put out the high school basketball schedule that Antietam Cable was going to embark on for this season. And the first game, wouldn't you know, scheduled for this coming Saturday, the IPSL Championship between the St. James and St. Maria Goretti boys. And what happens days after I put that out? We're going to get hit by a major snowstorm. Thank you very much. I hope it just doesn't go that way the rest of the winter. This has to be just an anomaly, right? Coming up on the show, we're going to get through this no matter what the weather is. We've got plenty of basketball to talk about. We had Rivalry Friday last Friday for the public schools, especially on the boys' side. Boy, all of those games turned out to be terrific. We'll show you and tell you what happened in those. Plus, we've got girls basketball to discuss and indoor track and field, certainly at the top of the list in terms of our topics this week. The county championships contested last week, and even though Boonesboro keeps on keeping on as far as the teams are concerned, some tremendous individual performances, and we've got video footage of those coming up here during the show too. Plus, I'll go into overtime before we're through. Coming back with Dan Kaufman and that indoor track and field in just a moment.
This is our home. It's where we've all decided to put down roots and raise families, not because we had to, because we wanted to. And as a business owner, you pour every ounce of energy into doing what's right for you in this community, and you won't and you don't stop until you get what you want, and neither do we. We're Antietam Cable Productions, and it's time to stand up and be seen and heard. You have a voice, and we'll help you tell your story. Antietam Cable Productions, putting the beat into the heart of your business.
Well, Eric and I worked for a long time together in the corporate restaurant world, and we decided that we wanted to put the fun back into food.
We do our food our way. We take the traditional and spin it.
We change our menu regularly. We have specials that are creative. Great food, great service in a warm and friendly environment where you can be in jeans and a t-shirt next to someone in a business suit and everyone feels comfortable.
Welcome back to the show. We continue with indoor track and field, and in particular the 25th County Championships contested last Friday at HCC. To join me to talk about it and review the results, Dan Kaufman from the Herald Mail. Dan, it was a good day for the county, as you suspect it to be going in, but as you talked about before the season even began, certainly Boonesboro was the team that the focus would be on. They have been the team the last several years in the county, no question. And I think when we start on the girls' side, certainly Haley Wright put on quite a show.
Yeah, my goodness. She had to do a little more than she usually has to. No relays on the agenda this time around because teammate Cameron Harper, who's the top county 500-meter runner, was on a family cruise, a long-planned family cruise that the coaches at Boonesboro, we should say, strongly encouraged her to continue to take and go have fun.
Well, Coach Becky Walter told me that Cameron told her, I'm not going to go on the cruise. I don't want to go on because that's what she told her parents. And then Coach Walter said, no, you're going on the cruise.
And a round of applause for everybody involved there. I appreciate Cameron wanting to be there for her teammates, but go enjoy the cruise too. Yeah. And Haley steps into the 500, runs the slow heat, which I guess should be renamed. Yeah, Haley's going to be in it. And runs a 1:22 and wins the event out of the slow heat. Nobody in the fast heat could match that time. I think the best time in the fast heat was a 1:23 something. And then Haley kind of conserved her energy in the 1600 and the 3200 intelligently because this meet flew. I mean, this meet was done in 3.5 hours, and that's an awful lot of running to do in that tight a time span. So she conserved her energy in the 1600 and 3200 and really brought it in the 800 and the 500. And it's the first time I can ever remember an individual winning 4 running events that weren't without a relay being involved in the same meet. That's pretty stunning.
Yeah, very impressive on Haley Wright's part, no doubt. I mean, we've come to expect a lot from her, but that was really above and beyond. And then I think when you look at individual performances beyond that, Smithsburg's Lauren Daniels has really emerged. I had asked Coach Schreiber, I said, well, where did she come from? Because she wasn't on the team as far as I knew at the beginning of the season. He said, well, we kind of talked her into it a little bit, but man, she has been tremendous.
I think Ray knew what she could be before she came out for indoor. She did run outdoor last year in the 400, solid 400 runner, but what she's doing indoors this year is surprising everybody, including herself. I mean, the week before this county meet, she ran 42.4 in the 300. I mean, that's Gabby Reason levels of fast going into that, and that's only a two-time state champion indoors last year. And again, she wins the 55, rallies in the 4x200 to pass another superb athlete in Jordan Morris and get that relay win, and also anchored ran a leg in the 4x400 as well. Again, anytime you're winning 4 county championships in one day, you're doing something spectacular, and the sophomore certainly is the breakout performer so far.
No question about it. And I think when you look at Boonesboro, too, their other champion, Bethany Lohman, in the pole vault, I don't know how in the world that the bar actually stayed up, because she made contact with that bar, and she and Coach Walter both looked at that bar. I mean, it was almost like a gift from God that it stayed up there, but able to clear 8 feet and win the pole vault, the other individual champion for Boonesboro.
Right. You'll see some weird things with the high jump and the pole vault sometimes where you just can't believe that bar stays up. But it can take a hit sometimes. And so anyway, great effort from her, because she wasn't the favorite going into that event. So again, more quality points for Boonesboro. And again, the girls, as we expected, run away with the team title.
Yeah, and I think as far as the girls are concerned, not overly surprised there, especially with Haley Wright, 4 individual victories. You've got Bethany Lohman winning, as we talked about. But on the boys' side, they win it, and they win it easily, yet you're hard-pressed to find, outside of one individual winner there, anybody who was at the top of the heap.
I've got 5 standout individuals on the boys' side written down, and none of them are Boonesboro. And, that seems a little unfair, I guess, in a sense. But here's the deal. They don't have necessarily superstars on the boys' side, but they have a whole lot of kids that are quality runners that are going to produce points. The whole reason they ran away from Smithsburg in the county meet is they had 14 places between 2nd and 4th, and Smithsburg only had 3. And it doesn't matter how many. Smithsburg had 4 individual, won 4 titles between 2 kids. But you can't keep up when you're getting outscored by that many points in those 2nd, 3rd, 4th place spots. So again, that's a credit to Becky Walter and a credit to the enthusiasm of the program, drawing all those kids out that want to participate and be part of what they've got going.
And wanting to be team champions in
absolutely.
a sport where you have to be very good individually to be part of that. But man, it's a great formula there at Boonesboro. But Jordan Churchy, the only individual champion for Boonesboro, winning the shot put. When we look at some of the other individual champions, Micah Daniel had a sensational day for Smithsburg.
He was one of those breakout kids last indoor season, but I mean, you're talking about a kid that was probably running something like the 2:06 range for the 800. Probably a good 4 or 5 seconds slower in the 500 last year, and he has just excelled in such a way, setting county meet record times. I mean, he ran the fastest 800 in county meet history on Friday, and was disappointed that he didn't break the 2-minute barrier. He was just a shade about 3/4 of a second over 2 minutes, and he wanted to get under 2 minutes, and that's the kind of competitor he is. But he said running alongside another phenomenal Smithsburg athlete, Will Merritt, this year has really helped. They've kind of helped each other with the speed work, and Will's got the distance pedigree, so it's all coming together for both of those kids right now, and it's exciting to see what they're doing.
Yeah, Merritt and Darren Harmon putting on some very intriguing matchups there in the 16 and 3200 respectively, with Merritt winning the 16 and Harmon winning the 3200.
Repeating the trend from earlier this indoor season as well. And again, Merritt's one of those kids that you're watching his 1600 time continue to drop.
Yeah.
Now it's 4:27, and I mean, he's a good 20 seconds better than he was this time last year in this event. And it's every time you see Merritt and Harmon clashing, especially in the 1600, it's the highlight event of the meet now. I mean,
it really is. It's must see.
Fascinating to watch, and then Harmon, turns around in the 3200 after getting beat in the 1600, and a lap to go, he's in control, but he's got that cross country loss at the wire at the cross country 3A meet in his mind, and he lets out a primal roar. He is not going to let anybody beat him out at states in that same fashion anymore. So again, both of those kids are lighting it up this year, and again, the overall quality of Washington County track this year is better, and in large measure because of what these kids are going out and doing.
And congratulations to Ian Mann of Hancock too on 2 individual championships.
Yeah, thrilling day for him. He was in the mix the previous year, but kept coming up short against other guys, and he kind of had his night to shine on Friday night.
Yeah, so that is the 25th annual County Indoor Track and Field Championships. As much as things change, they seem to stay the same, at least for the Boonesboro teams. Dan, thank you very much. Of course, the big meets still to come. Everybody's shooting for regions and states now. We'll keep you up to date on that. When I come back, I've got girls basketball. I'll be joined by Bob Parsolini in just a moment.
Antietam Cable's WCL-TV invites you to take a tour of local restaurants from the comfort of your couch with our local dining guide, airing now. Your host Sam Little goes beyond just the dining room and sits down with local owners and chefs to talk about what makes their restaurants local favorites. We explore the best of American cuisine, head south of the border for a little heat, and travel over the Atlantic for some of Italy's best. Washington County is a hotspot for great food, and we're showing you what you've been missing with WCL-TV's local dining guide, airing now on Channel 30 and in HD on Channel 489.
Sports fans rejoice! Antietam Cable's sports package delivers all your sports action, including NFL Red Zone and MLB Network. Don't miss a touchdown, three-pointer, or home run from your favorite teams in your region or across the country. From pro to college to life in the great outdoors, Antietam Cable has your sports coverage. Sports Plus. Order now and get 60 days free. Instant activation with a digital box. Call Antietam Cable now, 301-797-5000.
Welcome back to the show. We continue now with girls basketball, and joining me for that, Herald Mail insider Bob Parsolini. Bob, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Wes. Thanks.
Let's begin last Tuesday. Williamsport went to Walkersville. Hit on this a little bit last show about how big this would be in the region, that is 2A West. Walkersville had only one loss coming into that game. Williamsport came in with just 2 defeats. Pretty good game last Tuesday, very low-scoring game. Williamsport loses 45-39. The Wildcats never led in that game, but were within 1 possession in the game's final half minute. They only had 4 players score, did Williamsport. Lexi Robinson, though, seemed like she stepped up a little bit, something that Coach Murphy has been looking for, as we've talked about. 10 points in that game. But after wins later on in the week, Williamsport now 9-3, Walkersville 12-1. So right now, Walkersville really with a stranglehold there within the section in that 2A West region. So really it means that if Williamsport kind of wins out and things play out the way we would expect they would in terms of the seeds, Williamsport will wind up going back to Walkersville in the playoffs.
Kevin Murphy was speaking of that game from the beginning of the season as that being a measuring stick on how well they're going to do. There's only a couple of schools in 2A anymore that seem to be playing very well, and unfortunately or fortunately, Walkersville is one of them.
Yes.
I think Walkersville had its hands full, though, right after that game. They ended up playing Middletown, and it was a very low-scoring game.
What was that, 24-23 or something like that?
Yeah. Somebody got an extra point.
Yeah, that was one where points were certainly at a premium. On Friday night, Boonesboro and Smithsburg got together at Boonesboro, and Boonesboro has been playing a lot better lately since the calendar flipped over to 2016. The Warriors have gotten a lot better. They win that game 47-37. Got a little help in that Smithsburg's leading scorer, Haley Bachtel, was injured late in the third quarter, never returned to the game after that. But Boonesboro seemed to put together a real solid effort, using their size in that game, really out-rebounding Smithsburg rather badly by 20 overall, and they turned 35 offensive rebounds into 15 second chance points. And if you look at those two teams from the standpoint of their size, you would think that Boonesboro would have that advantage. But Coach Connolly, as we talked about this year, has been having trouble just getting that team going and heading in the right direction. You saw them earlier in the week, and I think they've just continued that momentum. They won again on Monday.
Well, they seem to be getting the idea of just passing the ball. I mean, there's Kathy Parson talked about this in the North-South game, which we'll be addressing a little bit here, but the idea that if you pass the ball and you move it around a lot, sometimes you don't need a point guard. And that was sort of the philosophy they did in beating North the other day, was they just passed the ball a lot. And I think that's what they're going. They obviously have some talented people. I mean, Sydney Stotler, she doesn't look very big or very imposing, but she's a good rebounder for them. She does a lot, gets a lot on the boards. Taylor Strasser can do a lot of different things and penetrate and steal the ball and rebound, you know. And so they have a lot of weapons. It's just a matter of getting the ball. And I think they're starting to figure out what their identity is, and it's working for them.
And that was the void when the season began. How did they replace Morgan Angle, who was the point guard a season ago? So now it's been point guard by committee as the season has gone along, but now it seems like they're sort of starting to hit their stride on that. And obviously, when you're able to beat a team up on the boards like that, get so many second chances, set yourself up close to the basket, higher percentage shots, it makes all the difference.
Well, then yesterday or Monday when they beat Brunswick, it was a lot of steals. They had like 21 steals, and that causes transition, which doesn't mean you need a point guard. You just need somebody who can dribble and pass the ball for a layup. Yeah. So, I mean, that helps a lot.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So Boonesboro right now on a roll, and Boonesboro and Williamsport on a collision course for the second time this year, weather permitting, next Tuesday at Boonesboro. Mentioned North Hagerstown, the win over South Hagerstown. The final was 65-34. Natalie Carlin, just an incredible night for North, outscoring South Hagerstown all by herself, 43 points, a school record.
Well, she just causes so much havoc. You know, I mean, if she's not taking the ball down the middle of the floor and going to the basket, she's diving on the floor and trying to get the ball, or she's sneaking up from behind and popping it out for somebody else. She does so much because she just disrupts everything. And now, to me, it looked like North is starting to get together a little bit offensively. Anna Shuck had a couple of baskets, and she's starting to work inside a little better. Lexi Pate is starting to score on the outside. So they're starting to come together, but the linchpin is definitely Natalie Carlin.
And North comes into the week 4-8, averaging 26 more points in their wins than they are in their losses. So obviously putting points on the board huge for North Hagerstown. That's a look at girls basketball for this week. Bob, thank you very much. I'll be back with boys basketball. Kevin Dunleavy joins me for that in just a moment.
Look how cute we are. I want to puke on us.
From the producer of Bridesmaids.
I'm just a modern chick who does what she wants. And relationships aren't my thing.
I think we really like each other and we should start dating.
No.
Yes.
No. I slept at the doctor's place last night. What were you, drunk? No, I had like 2 drinks. 3, max. 4 now that I'm tallying.
Trainwreck, unrated.
Digital customers, tune to Channel 1 to get started. Welcome back to the show. We continue with boys basketball now, and Herald Mail insider Kevin Dunleavy joins me. Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Wes.
Last Tuesday, it was a game that we didn't even talk about last week.
Yeah.
1-8 Smithsburg and 8-1 Clear Spring looked like a free space for Clear Spring with a much bigger game coming up on Friday. Smithsburg goes to Clear Spring, pulls the upset. How in the world did that happen?
I don't know. Smithsburg was coming off their worst game of the year, too. They shot something like 15% against Broadfording. They scored 20 points in the previous game, and this came out of nowhere. But it also showed you that Smithsburg is kind of coming to grips with who they are. They've got to really value possessions and play slow down, and not necessarily slow down, but really take care of the ball and treat each possession very, very valuably.
Yeah, it was a very methodical approach by Smithsburg, pulling Clear Spring out of its zone, forcing them to get out of its comfort zone along the way, and a 51-42 victory. Huge for Smithsburg to get that win. Clear Spring's lowest scoring total of the season, and Spencer Schultz only had 14 points in that game. Smithsburg, meantime, getting 14 from Cole Huntsberry, 11 from Cameron Cutchie, and 10 more from Devon Bay Wade. So they were able to spread it around a little bit. Not a lot of points on the board, but Smithsburg with a 9-point win. A bit of a head scratcher there again because just did not see that coming at all. And as you said, the setup to that was not good for Smithsburg, but man, what a bounce back effort there. And then we go to Friday night, and Clear Spring plays Williamsport at Williamsport. Clear Spring gets a lead. Then they sort of give that lead away a little bit. The game's back and forth. Clear Spring regains the lead, holds on to win it 47-43. And if they showed anything in those last two games, they struggled without Schultz scoring a lot of points. And then they got a real step up in that Williamsport game with Schultz again not scoring a ton of points, not having to rely on him, and they get the win in that game. So Clear Spring seemed to have righted itself in a hurry against a quality opponent.
Yeah, they're definitely a good team. I mean, there's nothing flukish about their 9-2 start. They've got length and athletic length too, which is it's just a tough combination. They play a defense that's really tough to figure out. They're definitely for real. And even when Spencer Schultz he doesn't have to score 30 points for them to win, which is a good sign because their defense is so good. Huge
win for Clear Spring there, the first time in 1,131 days, beating Williamsport on the basketball court in boys varsity. South Hagerstown, North Hagerstown at North on Friday night. You were there for that game. Electricity in the building, huge crowd. Couldn't have been any hotter or more humid in there. I thought a thunderstorm was going to roll through.
Right.
And just the way that the two teams played, tremendous tempo. Talk about that game a little bit.
Yeah, that's as far as quality of play, that's the best game I've seen other than a private school game. In the 2 years, the best boys game I've seen, and just up and down, and it brought out the best in both teams. It would really, it was like both teams played their best game that night until the final couple minutes for North, of course, when things went haywire for them.
Tremendous effort by South Hagerstown to score the final 11 points of that game to win 65-62 on the road. And the pride, I think, as far as the city pride for both teams, it was almost palpable. I mean, you could feel that there was something extra in the air that night. And Amir Harris, and you mentioned it in your story on Saturday, was a guy who went to North Hagerstown, all of a sudden at South Hagerstown, has a hand in the end of that game and the way that it all turned in South Hagerstown's favor. But he was part of that game throughout. It just so happened that a couple of steals there, feeding Jeffrey Wetzel, who had a tremendous night, that turned the tide for South Hagerstown, and they get a win. So now, and we've talked about this, has South Hagerstown finally figured itself out?
It certainly looks so. The one thing they hadn't had was cohesion before. They've had so many different lineups, but now it looks like they've got a rotation that's set, and with Amir Harris maybe taking the reins as the point guard, that could really change everything for him. Maybe he's still a sophomore, and he maybe takes too many shots sometimes, but I think he's just got too much talent not to be one of the best players in the county, and maybe they're following his lead. They don't really have a good a guy to give the ball to be that leader, but he may have finally solved it for him.
So South Hagerstown with the win starts the week now 7-5, and North Hagerstown takes the defeat despite a big night from Raheem Wilson, who I thought was in the middle of everything. Malik Carey kind of got going late in that game, but it was the defense of Amir Harris late that forced Carey to shoot a shot that was off the mark at the end of that game. So South getting the win there. And Boonesboro and Smithsburg on Friday night too, a game that went right down to the end. Smithsburg with a big rally in that game to come back from a 30-13 halftime deficit. The game was tied late, and then Alex Wetzel, who had figured in early for Boonesboro, hits a shot with 2 seconds left to give Boonesboro the lead. The Warriors win it 49-45. So I think when you throw a rivalry into the mix with these public school teams, as you said, it just brings out the best in them. And we really saw that on Friday night across the board, with all of those games turning out to be very competitive. And I think we look forward to the second meetings between all of those teams before the season comes to an end. Kevin, thank you very much. I guess we'll see what the weather holds as far as what we'll talk about next week, but that's something we can't control. So we'll see how it all plays out. I'm back right after this. I've got a little overtime for you in just a moment.
Tony's Pizza in Williamsport has had the same simple philosophy since 1985. Start with simple products. Sauce from the best Italian tomatoes. The best cheese and dough made fresh every day. Then mix those with a great atmosphere, and you'll have the best dining experience you can find. Tony's is known for their pasta dishes, subs, pizzas, and specialty items like their Nutella Dots and the famous Crazy Tony. Simply put, they want to give the best food they can give to their customers. So stop in today to Tony's Pizza in Williamsport.
Antietam Cable's WCL-TV invites you to take a tour of local restaurants from the comfort of your couch with our local dining guide, airing now. Your host Sam Little goes beyond just the dining room and sits down with local owners and chefs to talk about what makes their restaurants local favorites. We explore the best of American cuisine, head south of the border for a little heat, and travel over the Atlantic for some of Italy's best. Washington County is a hotspot for great food, and we're showing you what you've been missing with WCL-TV's local dining guide, airing now on Channel 30 and in HD on Channel 489.
Welcome back to Inside Sports as we go into overtime. Last week it came to light that the State Athletic Association in Wisconsin, known as the WIAA, had handed down an edict back in December. Now, that edict involved the banning of certain crowd chants during basketball games contested by high schoolers in gyms all throughout America's Dairyland. Singled out as no longer acceptable in that email from the WIAA, the phrases, "You can't do that," "We can't hear you," and "airball." The reason? According to the Athletic Association's Director of Communications, it was because, quote, any action directed at opposing teams or their spectators with the intent to taunt, disrespect, distract, or entice an unsporting behavior in response is not acceptable sportsmanship, end quote. While the penalty for lack of compliance is not exactly clear, what brought national, even international attention to the WIAA's intention was what might be considered an unsportsmanlike Twitter response to its new policy by a player on the Hilton High girls hoops team. Upon learning of the new mandate, April Gell tweeted a suggestion as to what she'd like the members of the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association to eat, and it wasn't cheese. The powers that be didn't take kindly to her recommendation because evidently they can read that, and they swiftly turned the tables and served her up a steaming plate full of discipline that Gell had no choice but to consume, a suspension that would eat up 5 games of her senior season. It's a story whose fallout landed on the websites of USA Today, Forbes magazine, and even the Daily Mail, the second largest newspaper in the United Kingdom. It's interesting to me that one of the components addressed in the WIAA's original policy was not wanting to restrict creativity. Perhaps Gell was a little too creative in firing back with her pointed words via Twitter. Well-respected ESPN analyst Jay Billis weighed in on the situation, also using Twitter to say how ridiculous the adults making these decisions have too much time on their hands and too little sense. Personally, I don't think anyone's arguing that rules need to be implemented and adhered to involving student and all fan behavior at all high school basketball games. But at the same time, let's not forget that while the behavior of the crowd should not determine the outcome of a game, it should be accepted that it can influence it. That perception is a big reason why student sections exist, and that's why those kids show up, sometimes paint themselves up, and otherwise hang on and react to what happens on the court as each and every second ticks off the clock. It's their investment that creates the atmosphere that in turn transfers energy to the players to perform at the highest level. Case in point, locally, last Friday night at North Hagerstown, red and green pervaded Hub Arena as the crosstown rivals from South paid a visit, and the student sections, separated by a mere 6 feet, never sat down in a gym where if the temperature was 1 degree, it was 101 degrees. The point being, they willed those guys wearing the uniforms to go beyond their limits, forget about their comfort zones, and deliver an incredibly entertaining and competitive performance. And that's what it's all about. It's a collective effort combining what happens on the floor with what's happening in the stands that creates that magical synergy that elevates a mere athletic contest to one of extra special proportions. And that's why it's such a fine line to toe when it comes to restricting spectators' participation. High school sports are about a lot of things, not the least of which is teaching life lessons. No doubt April Gell's learned that lashing out at an organization under whose rules she must play, even on social media, has consequences. As for the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association, my advice is to start the buses, hop on board, and point them for 1101 South Potomac Street here in Hagerstown on February 16th. That's when North and South and the respective student sections will again show us all the fundamentals of how it's done. Next week on the show, will probably be determined by our weather over the next several days. But I can promise you this, I will see you in 7 days. Until then, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the inside.
Hey, your sisters and your brothers, your haters and your lovers, you gotta get up in the streets.